The Switch 2 has now been out for 2 weeks when recording this video. This has given everyone plenty of time to get to grips with the new console and form some strong opinions about its value. So, should you buy a Switch 2 this close to launch? After 2 weeks with the Switch 2, my primary takeaway, which may sound strange to some, has been PlayStation 5. Stay with me on this thought, folks. Back in 2020 when the PlayStation 5 launched, it offered a better PlayStation 4. It was, and is for that matter, more powerful than the last gen offering, has better resolution, higher frame rates, and most importantly for many, exponentially improved load times. And it did this across both new and old titles, which did cause a few graphical challenges in Witcher 3 and Ghost of Tsushima when the system loaded the game in before they could load all graphical assets. With the Switch 2, my first week felt near identical to the PlayStation 5 launch. Sure, there are some great launch games like Mario Kart World, Cyberpunk 2077, Split Fiction, which will definitely be in contention for Game of the Year 2025, and more. There's also improvements to Switch 1 games, again, similar to that 2020 PS5 launch. Some are free patches boosting the resolution, frames and load times like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Mario Odyssey. Others are paid upgrades offering additional content alongside those other boosts like Breath of the Wild and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Again, like that previous PS5 launch though, these updates, patches, unlocks, or whatever you want to call them, are developer specific, and therefore there are many more titles from the previous generation that do not benefit from this new and improved hardware. Take Temtem as one example. It doesn't run any better on the Switch 2 than the Switch 1, which, given the ease of running this title, it runs at 4K and over 100 frames per second on a ROG Ally for example, this is quite disappointing. Despite those minor disappointments however, there is plenty to play on the new console, and in titles like the aforementioned Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it actually makes them viable and fun games to play, as opposed to the chugging mess of a title that it was prior to this Switch 2 patch. We know that software is such an important part of any device, and coming with near full backwards compatibility to Switch 1 offers a lot of legs to a new console awaiting its new titles like Donkey Kong and Pokemon ZA to launch. But what is the device itself like? My first thought was premium. Everything about the Switch 2 is a higher quality than the Switch 1. We're talking materials, we're talking build, we're talking interaction and experience. In every single manner that you can think of, the Switch 2 is a step or 3 steps above the Switch 1. Take the Joy-Cons. They feel way better in the hand when not attached to the console, and better than the original when they are. Make no mistake, these still aren't the best controllers on the market. I would personally assign that title to the DualSense controller, especially with the feedback that controller gives you that you don't get anywhere else. But comparing the new Joy-Cons to their predecessor, this is a definite upgrade. The soft touch feel to everything is much nicer in the hand than the crisp, hard plastic that you can feel the manufacturing seam on from the originals. The buttons are a nice soft touch feel under the thumb, and they've got a clickiness to them that is satisfying to use. If a little noisy. They can definitely wake people up when you're playing the console next to them whilst they're trying to snooze. The Joy-Cons feel weightier and more durable than the previous models, which again doesn't necessarily point to a better experience, but that impression of a higher quality, of more care given, when this is a more premium priced device, matters greatly. And I would say that the Joy-Cons have definitely ticked that premium box for the Switch 2. I do have concerns with their attachment to the console though. It's very satisfying, the magnetic attachment is. I would say better than the rails that we had on the Switch 1. The act of attaching them is very satisfying. You put them gently in place and then the console sort of takes them off you and snaps them into place. The challenge that I personally face with this system, and it might be the way that I play and it might not be the same sort of concern for everybody, is this travel on the Joy-Cons. This thing is completely set in place. The magnets are holding it on the connectors to the console and it is fully usable. and still there is a high level of wobble back and forth. I can't pull it out horizontally without pressing the release mechanism, which is brilliant. It means these aren't going to be ripped out by young children trying to use the console or accidentally whilst you're playing a more intense moment. But that wobble, that front and back wobble, on the console worries me. Because it's putting undue stress on the connectors that allow these Joy-Cons to actually work with the console. And if that causes damage, it's not a case of just replace the Joy-Con then. If this is a failure point of the device, it will then be a point of replace the whole console. And at £400 for the console, that is not a cheap thing to sort out for what could be a design fault. But returning now to that premium feeling, it continues into the body of the device, where the screen is housed, the SD card slot, the game slot, the headphone jack, which is a huge rarity on any tech in 2025, and all of the brain boxes, circuit boards and gubbins that make the console actually work live. This feels much higher quality than the original. It's a solid metal design, and the kickstand is vastly improved over the original Switch. Rather than a flimsy small plastic stand that on many people's devices did snap off, you've got a full width stand. But this time, just like on the Samsung folding phones, it can be posed at any angle to give you all sorts of viewing angles of the Switch 2 in tabletop mode. Underneath of that stand, you've got the new SD card slot, where you need to input a very expensive microSD express card. But with the included internal storage of the device, thus far, I haven't found a need for expanded storage. So that is an expense that you can definitely avoid at the launch, or at least initial purchase, of the console. And the dock also feels more premium than the original. Whilst it operates mostly the same way, this time you have a fan included to try and keep the console cool, which when in docked mode and it's trying to push 4K visuals and 60 frames per second, that fan can definitely help with the temperature regulation of the console, and hopefully stop the chugging performances that we saw in docked mode on the original device. Included this time is an Ethernet port as well. Unlike last time, you don't need to go out and buy an additional accessory to connect to the internet. When in the last generation, Nintendo moved a lot of their franchises to online play like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario World, basically all of the Marios by the sound of it, they did so without an Ethernet port available for the console. But when you move to that online play, you need to have a nice, stable online connection. It is nice then that the Ethernet port is included from the word go this time, rather than needing a new accessory or a new dock further down the line. And Wi-Fi is improved as well. Rather than tapping out at the 60 megabits per second of the last generation, we're up and over 300 megabits per second this time, meaning downloads, online play, and everything else that requires an internet connection is that much easier. To top things off for features that are here this time that were not here last time, and may have been taken away prior to launch because companies do like to do that, we have Bluetooth connectivity on the Switch 2. So you don't need to wait for 5 years for Nintendo to turn the Bluetooth on to be able to use Bluetooth headphones, earphones, earbuds, whatever the case may be, so that you can have your audio and not disturb the other people around you. In terms of its operation, as already stated, the dock operates much the same as the Switch 1. If you pop it in whilst the screen is turned off, the dock will charge the console. If you pop it in while the screen is turned on, it will start casting your game onto your big screen, whether that be your living room TV, bedroom TV, game room TV, office monitor, whichever screen it's connected to via HDMI, it will cast to that in higher quality than you are playing in handheld mode. It is of course available to just turn the console on when already docked. I imagine this is where most people will store the Switch 2 when it isn't in use. And if you've got the setting of share power state with your television turned on, the moment you hit play on that console, your TV will turn on, switch you to the right HDMI input, and you're in the game as quick as you possibly can be. It sounds like a lot of coverage for a little dock, a little plastic thing that a console sits in. But it's kind of vital to the hybrid nature of this console. And thankfully, it works pretty well.
The Switch 2, however, is meant to be a mobile gaming device. Yes, you can play it on your television, and the experience there is pretty damn good. But it is a hybrid console. You're meant to be able to pick it up out of the dock and take it anywhere with you. Be that on the bus, on your lunch break at work, or even just out here, wandering around, anywhere in the world.
The Switch 2 is meant to be portable. It is the whole point of the name Switch. But like many of these other portable gaming devices, like your PC handhelds, your dedicated devices and retro devices, the battery life is a bit of a challenge. So much so that I'd go as far as to say the battery life on the Switch 2 absolutely sucks. If you're playing one of the more intensive Switch 2 games, you're looking at maybe an hour's battery life total. Now granted, your PC handhelds are going to get far worse battery life than that in more demanding AAA titles. But they are a PC alongside being a gaming device. Bear in mind that the Switch 2 just plays games. That, to me, says it's either a terribly optimized system, or Nintendo haven't put a big enough battery inside of it. Whatever the reason is, it massively negatively impacts your mobile gaming experience. So much so that realistically, you either have to park yourself near a power outlet when playing handheld, or carry a massive battery bank with you to actually make the device mobile and usable. In this portable mode, ergonomics become really important too. It's been 7 years since the original Switch, and one of the worst complaints about that device is its terrible ergonomics. So, with the mass amounts of money that have been garnered from the original Switch, all its software sales and accessories that Nintendo have sold, surely their R&D department have come up with a much better situation for the comfort of handheld gaming on this successor. Well, no. They've basically gone with the exact same design language and approach as the original Switch. A flat slab smacked into your hands. It's horribly uncomfortable, especially coming from something like the PlayStation Portal, which put ergonomics at the core of its design. That thing is still the most comfortable handheld gaming device that I have ever used. Even your PC handhelds, because they're a bit thicker and have some form of grip on them, even on the earliest ones, feel way better in the hand than the Switch 2 does. This flat slab approach is like using a big phone or a small tablet constantly. It's just uncomfortable. You end up resting the weight of the entire thing upon your pinky fingers, which is either going to hurt very quickly, cause repetitive strain injury, or give you obtusely buff little fingers. Maybe it's because the aftermarket sales of ergonomic grips is so great with the original Switch that Nintendo thought they could monetize this device further by sticking with the old design choice. But, as the most expensive console that they have ever released in their history, and their heaviest handheld to date, it doesn't seem good enough that out of the box, I'm already looking for accessories to make it more comfortable to actually use. The screen in that handheld mode, though, is really good. Now, it's not class-leading. It's not, blow you away, I've never seen anything this good in my life. But no one, unless you are looking for problems specifically, is going to have any form of complaint with the Switch 2's included screen. It's a 1080p 120Hz panel, meaning games can run at up to 120 frames per second, if the console can push that sort of frame rate. It's also HDR certified. Now granted, that high dynamic range isn't great. I think I would have preferred them to create a specific vivid mode for the LCD screen to emulate HDR. But HDR is there, it works on your TV, and it works in handheld mode. Like I say, not superb, but better than not having it, and far more impactful than ray tracing. While the screen may not be class-leading, it is very similar to the screen that happens to be in the Asus ROG Ally at 1080p and 120Hz. Colours in non-HDR, given that the Ally doesn't actually do HDR in handheld, are very similar between the two devices. But then the PlayStation Portal pops back up, as I personally think its screen pops that little bit better than the Switch 2, with specific LCD tweaks and colour profiles. That said, I'm not disappointed in the Switch 2 screen. Do I wish I had OLED? Of course. In fact, before launch I thought that there would be two models of the Switch 2. An LCD model, which was more price attainable for the majority of folks, and an OLED model for those of us who have a bit of snobbery around our screens. Alas, I was incorrect, and this is what we get. But as you can see from the footage on screen, This is not a bad LCD screen by any stretch of any imagination, and games look great upon it. So, I like the actual physical device, with the caveat of a couple of concerns and challenges. I like the software that I've been playing, even if most of that is older content that has been improved on the Switch 2. But should you buy one at this point, so early in its lifespan? Now, just prior to the launch of the Switch 2, I have been completely enamoured with the ROG Ally, a handheld gaming PC. What the Switch 2's launch has reminded me, however, is why, prior to owning that Ally, I have actively avoided PC gaming for over 12 years. It's because console gaming just works. Switch 2 has been a breeze to play after spending months on a handheld gaming PC. Turn the console on, select the game, play the game. It's that simple. And that simplicity is priceless, especially for those with busy lives. The Switch 2 ecosystem also comes with exclusive games that you cannot legally play anywhere else. And titles like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 4K and 60 frames per second is essentially a dream come true. But if you don't have a Switch 2 right now, this is not a vital upgrade. The only exclusive Switch 2 game is Mario Kart World, which is excellent, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is also excellent and can be played on Switch 1, which over 170 million households worldwide have access to already. That one exclusive game does not push the console to its max capabilities either, nor do any of the patches or updates. Nothing runs at 120 frames per second, so that screen is wasted. Very few games hit 4K resolution when docked. And mouse mode? Remember that feature from the announcement? I've literally only used it to set the feature up. No games or apps utilize or accept the input. I do like the Switch 2. Its improvements to old games are great and actually make some of them finally enjoyable to play. The console is better than Switch 1 in nearly every single way that matters.
But there is quite a bit about the Switch 2 that I haven't spoken about during this review. For example, the camera. Now, I didn't buy the official one as I didn't have the spare £50 to spend on it, but I had seen that other professional cameras did work with the device. Unfortunately, neither my DJI Osmo Pocket 3 nor my PlayStation 5 camera work with the Nintendo Switch 2. So I've got no experience of it. I can't talk about that or the games that it's utilised within. Voice chat, it's there and it works alright, but it works pretty much as the Xbox 360 voice chat did 20 years ago. When this is a paid for additional service, you expect it to be better than the bare basic minimums, especially when so many of the players are already ingrained in other ecosystems because they've spent those two previous online generations with Nintendo having to find other ways to communicate with their friends, as there was no native voice chat. These digital game cards are weird. I have a digital game card for Pokemon Violet, for example. However, it doesn't allow me to just play the game. That digital game card is just for the DLC. To play the game and that DLC on that digital game card, I've still got to put the physical game card into my device. And then there are certain games that come to the console that just have a key on a card. So you still have to have the physical card inserted to play it, but there's no actual game on it. It is such a weird and what feels like a dumb scenario to find yourselves in. The mouse mode that I've mentioned, well, once so far in the video. Again, it is here, but there's literally no software to take advantage of it. Whilst it is on occasion a bit faster to zip around the home menu and all of the settings, you can do it nearly as quickly in the old-fashioned on the controller way, because the console is designed for that method of input. So it's a pointless addition at this point in time, especially when a sum total of 0 games actually use it. There's many other little things too. The absolute boring blandness of the full black design, the really small Nintendo Switch 2 software library at launch, which don't get me wrong, is bigger than the OG Switch, which only had 6 games for 2 months, but it's still not exactly sizable. The lack of native hardware upgrades for Switch 1 games, to just unlock higher frame rates or faster load times, even if you don't increase the resolution. Simple things that Xbox and PlayStation did really well with this current generation. But Nintendo seems to have just said, we don't care about it. Many, many little things. And these little things add up.
If all you want is a better Switch, the Switch 2 is that right now. But if you want a next-generation Nintendo console, and the experience that goes along with such a connotation, then we're not there yet. If that is what you want, let the Switch 2 marinate for a year. Let new games release, and let Nintendo sort the experience of the firmware and console out. Then jump into that new generation. In the meantime though, you're missing absolutely nothing if you continue playing on Switch 1. So, if you have any burning questions, ask in the comments below or the community tab under posts on my channel page. A huge special thanks as well to all channel members for their additional support. I hope you guys enjoy your early access to all long-form content and monthly Members Cast exclusive content. Not a member yet? You too can get early and exclusive access to videos via the join button below. In the meantime, I would like to thank you all so much for tuning in. This video was produced after 2 weeks use of a Nintendo Switch 2 purchased personally by Doragon. Nintendo do not know that this video is being made, they do not get any copy approval or early preview of its contents. If they do see it, they will see it for the first time, right alongside you. If you've liked this video, I think these will also be of interest to you. In the meantime, my name is Doragon. You can find me sparingly on socials at Doragon86, in the aforementioned community tab on YouTube, or daily in the Discord in the description. And until next time folks, have yourselves a fantastic day. And take care.